In the end, I think it's just plain and simple. SMU just didn't make enough plays to win this game against TCU.
You are Locked On SMU, your daily podcast on the SMU Mustangs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Oh boy, let's go ahead and talk about it. Welcome to a Locked On SMU bonus content as we get some immediate reaction to SMU's 35-24 loss on the road in Fort Worth to the Horned Frogs of TCU. The final scheduled running of the Iron Skillet goes in the direction of the school from Fort Worth. And you know what? Let's just go dive right into it. I'm Grayson Singleton. Thanks so much for watching. In the end, SMU just didn't make enough plays. And when I saw that Jordan Hudson was playing in this game, I did not think that this was going to be the tone that we would take after this game. But in the end, they just didn't make enough plays. They left in the first half 14 points on the board. Okay, so really 8 points, because I believe, or actually no, more than that, because they had the one play where Kevin Jennings layers it over the safety and Ymir Knight can't come down with it. I think you end up punting on that drive. And then obviously the play, Jordan Hudson bobbled it and then reeled it in, but he was out of bounds in the end zone that they ended up having to settle for 3. Those are the two things that I'm factoring in there. And you lose by 11 points, but you could have had a lot more. Like, this game could have been that much more interesting if you make those kinds of plays. And they just didn't. Receivers had a decent day, but when it came down to those critical things, SMU just didn't have the plays to make. Even defensively, too. You got one interception on Josh Hoover, but how about this? You didn't get a sack on him. You only got 2 sacks. You only got 2, which it kind of felt like you didn't really get a whole heck of a lot of pressure. Josh Hoover's not a quarterback that likes to run around a whole lot, but he had 8 carries for 27 yards, and he had a 13-yarder. That was a big one when he did back in the first half. So they were the ones that I think went above and beyond to make the plays. But defensively, the tackling still really wasn't that great. And when it came time for you to go one-on-one, SMU just didn't do it. They didn't do it. They didn't come down with all the contested balls. They didn't come down with making sure that they separated man from ball defensively. They didn't make that crucial tackle. And look, hats off to Kevin Jennings, because I thought Kevin played well. Got his ankle banged up again, had to be helped off the field, comes back into the game, and completes 24 of 38 passes for 290 and 3 tuds. The 2 interceptions, desperation time. Coach Lashley talked about it after the game. Desperation time, trying to make a play. Don't hold it against him. Not every interception is created equal. I thought Kevin played good. But I think there was a point in time in this game where, even Kevin included, there was just a play left on the field. I brought up those 2. How about the one on the scramble, the first touchdown of the game for TCU, where Josh Hoover's running around, looks dead to rights, fires one. Oops, there's Eric McAllister open. That's them making a play. And more times than not, Eric McAllister had 8 catches for 254. That's just playmaking. Josh Hoover, 22 of 40, completed just higher than 50% of his passes. That's not great, but 379 and 5 tuds. That's him and the guys around him just being better at making plays. Plain and simple. Like that is all. When I go through this game and I look at how things transpired, I saw 2 teams that played pretty good. Time of possession was pretty much even. The total yardage was lopsided in TCU's favor. But the penalties, SMU didn't even kill itself with penalties. 7 penalties for 70 yards, you can stomach that. But ultimately, when you look at how the game unfolded and you look at just the critical moments, it just seemed like SMU won or SMU lost every single critical moment. And you're not going to beat good teams like that. TCU now is ranked. TCU, I'm recording this right after the AP rankings come out. TCU's a ranked team. And you're just not going to beat teams like that if you can't make plays. Plain and simple. And look, the playmaking becomes even more heightened in terms of importance when you realize the fact that SMU didn't really do the thing that it does well through the first 3 games. They didn't do a whole lot of that very well, and that's run the football. And I thought they would be able to run the football, and we're going to talk about that in the second part of this reaction. But they ran the ball for 3.5 yards per carry. That's easily the worst. And I didn't even have to tell you that number. It just didn't look right. It didn't look like SMU was going to have that day on the ground. And again, credit to the quarterback for doing all he could to make up for that. They had a changeup, but when your fastball is taken away, you're going to have to go above and beyond and make plays. And SMU's fastball is the fact that TJ Harden and Chris Johnson Jr. are hard to get to the ground. And they didn't run the ball miserably, by the way. Harden, 15 carries for 56, 3.7 yards per carry. Johnson, 5 for 19. But here's the thing. Here's really what my concern is. They ran the ball as a team. If you take the sacks that Kevin Jennings took out of it 24 times, I just don't think that's the best way for SMU to win football games, is to run the ball 24 times. And by the way, SMU did not trail by that much throughout the game. They were down by 11, but that was early in the second quarter when they were down 14-3, came back and scored a touchdown on that drive. After that, they trailed in the middle of the third quarter, getting the ball back, by the way, after TCU went and scored a touchdown to make it 21-10. And then they went back and scored a touchdown. So you never were in a position where you had to stop running the football. And look, were they having the most success with it? No. But if you just do simple math here, you never were out of the run the ball 3 times, get a first down. So all in all, when I look at this, I think it's a matter of the fastball wasn't working as well. You had a good secondary pitch, but when your fastball's taken away, you got to make plays. And they just didn't make enough plays. Credit to TCU because they made the plays. Boy, did they. They were a playmaking, generating machine in the game yesterday. And SMU couldn't match it. They just didn't. And here SMU sits now 2-2 with your wins against East Texas A&M and Missouri State and your losses against Baylor and TCU. And we'll talk about this at some point in the coming week, but you want to get back to the college football playoff, you're in a situation now where you have to win the ACC. Period, point blank in the story. Like, there's no margin for error now because you didn't think that 3 ACC teams were going to get into the field of 12. They damn sure are not now. And if it happens, SMU will not be one of them. Not with the fact that they have lost their only 2 games to Power 4 teams before the conference slate starts. Got a bye week in between now and Syracuse to get it right. But if they want to get back to the championship picture, their margin for error is pretty much gone at this point in time. And Miami, boy, that team looks incredible. Coming up next, we'll keep up with this reaction because is it time to question the coaching? We'll talk about that on the other side. Keep it here, Locked On SMU. Quick question for all of you college football fans out there. If you could go back in time and sit front row at your school's biggest rivalry game, what hat would you be wearing? Yeah, I said, which hat would you wear? For me, it would be hats by the game. These aren't just hats, but they're the same vintage styles that fans wore back in the 80s and 90s. And guess what? They're still going for the exact same price they did back then. When you use code LOCKEDON, you will get your vintage hat for $16.99. Head to thegamecaps.com. That's thegamecaps.com. Grab your team's classic bar or retro circle design and use code LOCKEDON for an exclusive discount because legends wear the game. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use however you want across the app. Same-game parlays, player props, or even jumping in as the live action unfolds. You can do it all. And by the way, the payouts are quick and easy, so you can get your winnings as soon as they're available. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar, packed out on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. And wherever you live, you know that there is there's just that spot that everybody loves. Angela's Cafe in Dallas, La Casita Cafe. I'm a big coffee and brunch type of person, so I love those types of places, along with Einstein Bagel Bros. That's in the DFW airport that I've had to frequent the last few years in my life. So those are just some of the places that are on Square. And Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/lockedoncollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. All right, let's continue this reaction as SMU loses to TCU 35-24 in the final game of the non-conference slate. And the second thing that stood out to me is it time to question the coaching? I think that we've kind of held off on that point for long enough. And here's why I bring this up. We'll start defensively. And look, I'm going to talk more about this on Monday, but they either have to do something about getting more pressure on the quarterback, or this is just going to become a trend. They're not going to be able to stop the pass. And when they're matched up with really good receivers, that it's just going to be, they're just going to get cooked because the cornerback play still is not good enough. When they get into scramble drill, they haven't really done well there. Now, a good pass rush will certainly aid a slacking secondary, and also a faulty pass rush also makes life more difficult on the secondary. So I understand that the two work in conjunction. But whether it's tackling immediately after the catch or just making sure that no catch happens, it's just not good enough. And I don't know at this point if it's going to get better. But here's where I come with the coaching. They're going to have to schematically change how they go about defense, because we already know that in the two games that they've played against quality opponents, they have given up north of 30. And with the way Syracuse looked this weekend, with the way Miami's been looking when they don't turn the ball over, Clemson's still on your schedule, even though that game, I don't know what to think about that now that the Tigers are 1-3 to start the year. But I mean, you've still got good quarterback play coming down the pike. And obviously what you're chasing is to get back into an arena where you're going to play even better quarterbacks than that. So that's going to be an issue. They either are going to have to find a way to generate more discomfort to the quarterback, or the secondary just has to cover up. And even more so, even if you can't cover, they've got to tackle better, because they just do not tackle better. They don't plaster well in the scramble drill, and they don't tackle well at all after the catch. So there's that. So Scott Simon certainly is under the microscope. But Rhett Lashley and Casey Woods, I'm not going to let them off the hook for this one. Because in the Baylor game, they stopped running the football in a critical juncture of the game. Late in the game, you had a 3rd down and 3. You've been running the ball for 6 yards a carry with TJ Harden. You put the ball into Kevin Jennings' hand, and instead of it being a quick hitter, you have a drop back, you get a sack. And here is where I have a major, major problem. And I'm looking off camera because I am going to quote this to you directly. TCU responds to an SMU touchdown in the 4th quarter, 3 plays, 75 yards, Josh Hoover hits Eric McAllister for, the 70-yard touchdown. The ensuing SMU possession. 1st and 10, incomplete pass. 2nd and 10, incomplete pass. 3rd and 10, incomplete pass. Punt the ball back to SMU. 3 plays, 0 yards, 30 seconds off the clock. That possession and the next possession for TCU, where the Horned Frogs go 6 plays, 75 yards to score, 2:45 off the clock. That play, that sequence of 9 plays, not only won TCU the time of possession, it won TCU the game. Because at that point, SMU is not coming back from 2 scores down. Their next 2 drives end in interceptions where you're trying to make a play. How in the hell do you not run the ball at least once? I mean, you're averaging at that point about 4 yards a carry. You're averaging 4 yards a carry. How do you go away from that? Oh, and by the way, after TCU scored the touchdown to go up 35-24, what's the first play to start the next drive? A TJ Harden run. What are we doing? I know this coaching staff believes that they've got receivers that can make plays out the you-know-what, and they certainly do. Kevin Jennings played a good game, but there's no reason to not run the ball at least once. You're down by 4. This isn't like they scored and you're down by, 12. You just scored on a possession. Let's go back to the previous possession before that. Before that possession, when SMU went down the field and scored a touchdown, you started off the possession with a run. Now you got a big chunk play to Romello Brinson, but you also ran the ball to Chris Johnson Jr. before Kevin Jennings hooked up with Jordan Hudson for a 34-yard touchdown. You ran the ball twice and it only netted you a yard, but you still ran the ball. You still had the threat of doing it. You see what I'm talking about? When you go drop back, it's like, okay, this is easy. They made themselves one-dimensional, and now that's twice in both games against Power 4 teams where I think the offensive coaching staff just overthought the room. They tried to do too much. Keep the ball on the ground. You can get creative with it. I'm not saying run your head into a brick wall. I'm not saying that one bit. But you can still be creative with the run game. But the best thing, or the thing that you have done the best through the first 3 games of the season, they have twice now at critical junctures of a game just completely gone away from. And I do wonder if these late game, close game situations are starting to become this coaching staff's undoing. I really am starting to question that, because right now they just seem to get away from who they are in those moments. And Baylor took advantage of it and TCU took advantage of it, because let's be real. Rhett Lashley and his staff, when it matters the most, have been outcoached, both by Dave Aranda's staff and now Sonny Dykes' staff. Period. End of story. There's no way around it. So now this game comes down to 2 things. One team made more plays. One team remained itself at critical moments in time. And TCU won both of those. TCU won both of them. Their players made more plays, and their coaching staff stayed within itself, allowed the team to stay within itself. Difference in the ball game, to be quite honest. They never got desperate, never got out of control, never got away from who they were. And I think in 2 games now, SMU has done exactly that. I don't think in the Baylor game that Baylor necessarily made more plays. I think their kickers did. And I think SMU left a lot of points on the field. But especially in that first half, didn't make enough plays. In the second half, just didn't stick with what very well could have worked. And to me, that's the difference. All right, that'll do it for this reaction, this mini episode here as we wrap up the SMU loss to TCU. I'll talk to you again on Monday, and we'll dive even more in depth with all of this. I'm Grayson Singleton. Take it easy, everybody.